Good day, everyone, and I thank you all for joining us. We're very excited today to have Lizabeth Schuch with us. Elizabeth will talk candidly about her journey with bipolar disorder and her ability to live well with an illness that can be devastating at times. Diagnosed at age 17, she will offer 30 years of experience and insight managing bipolar disorder. Along with a brief reading from her book, More Than Bipolar, a memoir of acceptance and hope, she will share her wisdom attained to break the hold of stigma, shame, and fear surrounding this illness, as well as the life lessons of acceptance, understanding, and maturity necessary to not only live well with bipolar, but to also move beyond limitations when we identify ourselves as the illness. By sharing her experiences openly, she wishes to equip those who are directly affected by this misunderstood illness, including those who love and care for them. Her message is one of hope and that a healthy, happy, and productive life with bipolar may indeed be a part of the diagnostic picture. Elizabeth currently works with a community behavioral health care agency dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues, as well as the wellness and recovery manager. Welcome, Lizabeth.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you to the International Bipolar Foundation for this wonderful opportunity and for all that the International Bipolar Foundation does to help both those who have bipolar disorder and those who love and care for them. So today I have a couple of goals, and they are that, one, that you hear something that resonates with your own situation, or maybe even hear something new that may help you in your journey, whether you have the illness or you're a family member or friend, and also that I can provide some hope. So today I'm going to be sharing part of my journey with bipolar disorder, including a reading from my memoir, and I'm going to try to capture the things that have been most important to me to live well with this illness. And I say this with the caveat that it's not always easy and that it takes a lot of work. So I'll also talk about what I do to live well and lessons that I've learned, and then a little bit about language and stigma, because I feel like this is really, really important. And then just to let you know what my hopes and dreams are for our future with this illness. So a little disclaimer is I feel that it's really important for me to say that this is my story, and I'll be sharing my views, and it comes from 30 years experience with the illness. So I come from a little bit of a different perspective than some, and I acknowledge that no one is the same. However, I found that those who have bipolar and depression can relate in some ways. But we all have our own unique stories, and I'm just one person who has chosen to reveal myself in a way that some people feel they cannot. Certainly not everyone needs to, but we have to have enough people to speak up and show that this illness should be treated like any other illness, and that a big part of that means helping people to understand bipolar so that the fear can be minimized and so that we can break the stigma that is so prevalent. And part of that is through sharing our stories and showing people what the face of bipolar really looks like. And that is like anyone else. And so ultimately this can help us to reduce the stigma. But the reality is that for someone who has not been through it, it's very difficult to understand. And this is why we need to work harder at figuring out ways for others to really get it. Because in all reality, it's hard for us who have the illness sometimes to understand it. But we do know how it feels. So before I get started with my story, just in case there's some people who are not familiar, I want to take just a couple minutes, just a few slides, to give a basic overview. And there's certainly lots of information online and on the International Bipolar Foundation website. And everything out there is really quite comprehensive, so I'm just going to say a little bit about it and keep it as simple and what I know it to be. One is that it's a misunderstood illness, and it affects millions of people, men, women, all races, ethnic groups, and socioeconomic classes. It does not discriminate. And too many people go undiagnosed for too many years while experiencing symptoms. And the average delay is about 10 years, and that is just totally unacceptable. So what is bipolar? Well, it's also referred to as manic depression, and it's an illness of the brain. It's said to be due to a chemical imbalance, although that has been argued, but research certainly shows that both genetics and environment most likely play a role. It's an illness of extremes, and it brings severe highs and low moods, and really everything in between that too, but with changes in sleep, energy, thinking, and behavior. The highs are called manias, and they can be euphoric and include reckless and exuberant behavior, and can escalate into psychosis and also be in the form of extreme irritability. The lows, or the depressions, and they can include feelings of hopelessness or worthlessness, trouble concentrating and making decisions, despair, and even tragically result in suicide. Some express the symptoms in milder forms in between the extremes on a spectrum. So what it's not? This illness is really not about being overly happy or sad. There's something in the brain that's different than those without bipolar, and that causes the shifts in mood. And sometimes something may trigger an episode, but sometimes it takes nothing at all to put someone into a depression or mania. There are four main distinctions for diagnosing, and there are really more than this, but I'm just going to mention quickly bipolar type 1, which I am most familiar with, and that's with the full-blown manias or mixed episodes, and then there's depressive episodes, and then bipolar 2, which is a pattern of depressive episodes, and hypomanic, which are the more minor episodes, but not full-blown manic. And then there's something called bipolar not other specified, and that one is where it just doesn't meet the diagnostic criteria for bipolar 1 or 2, but there are symptoms that are clearly outside of the person's normal range of behavior. And then the fourth one is a mild form of bipolar, which is called cyclothymia. Again, I'm most familiar with 1 and 2. That's what I have come into contact with more people with those two. But again, bipolar 1 is also referred to as manic depression. So I'm going to go ahead and read a reading from my book, and I want you to be prepared. It's going to take about 10 minutes. And what this is that I'm inviting you into my world on March 1st, 1984. It's the day that I was diagnosed and hospitalized, and then I continue into the first few days of a month-long hospital stay. It's an attempt for me to convey what a manic episode can look like and feel like. And keep in mind that this was, it was only about 10 days up to this point that prior to that I had exhibited no symptoms of any different behavior like this. And also know that this is when I was 17 as I go through this reading. So it's 7 o'clock in the evening on a school night. My parents tell me we're going out to see a doctor. I immediately run to my room and start throwing items into an overnight bag. I know there's more to this trip, and we must be going somewhere good. I can just feel it. I throw in my swimsuit because I am quite sure that my training for the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles is a part of the excursion. My enthusiasm abruptly changes to agitation. I sit on top of the stairs outside my bedroom and state with certainty, I'm not going. My mom and I struggle back and forth, and then I just as abruptly give in and say, okay, I'm back to feeling excited again. I can't wait to get on our way, wherever we're going. My mom, Dad, and I get in the car, and we first stop off at the high school to pick up my purse, which I had left behind at school that day. I don't even care I left something behind that's so important. I can't be bothered with something so insignificant at this very moment. I do notice that they keep the child locks on in the back seat where I'm sitting, while one of them runs in. I'm not sure why they would do that. I'm not going anywhere. I'm thrilled to be on this adventure. We arrive at an office building and meet Dr. A. My parents tell me he's a psychiatrist. I've never met a psychiatrist before, but that's okay. He is very nice and begins to ask me questions. I stop him and ask, "Where's the couch? Isn't there supposed to be a couch?" I ask him if I can squish down in the chair I'm sitting in with my legs extended as if to mimic some sort of couch position. He says that will be fine, and now I'm more comfortable. After what seems to be about 10 minutes of questions, Dr. A says to me, "Lizabeth, you are a textbook case manic depressive." I say, "Okay," but I don't have a clue what that means, and I don't really care. It's all fine with me. I'm in my own world and not really hearing him. He then talks directly to my parents, and soon we are in the car again, off to a hospital that seems to be far away. It's dark out, and everything seems to be flying by as I peer out the window. The lights and buildings and more lights zoom by. It feels like we're going really, really fast. I'm talking nonstop, and it's hard to even take a breath because I have so much to say. I haven't received more than a uh-huh or okay from Mom and Dad. It's odd that they're not joining in with me in all my great observations. Even though they say we're going to a hospital, I know that there is some hidden meaning in it all. This whole day has been very cryptic, but I know that wherever we're going, and whatever the reason, this is all about me, and it's all for me, so it must be great stuff. I've got my swimsuit with me, and I will be able to continue my Olympic training, so that's all that really matters for now. We enter the lobby of a hospital I've never been to or seen before. My mom sits down, and she cannot seem to stop crying. I don't know what's wrong. I'm having such a great time, so why would she be crying? The fleeting thought of wondering why escapes me very quickly. My dad suggests we go into the hospital chapel. We pray and wait and wait and wait. Finally, the staff tells us there is a room ready for me, and I'm feeling hopeful that this new adventure is going to get rolling. There are no rooms available on the open unit, so I will have to stay on the closed unit. I don't really know what that means. All I care about is that I smell chlorine, and I know we must be at the right place. The pool has got to be somewhere close by. Before I'm allowed to go to my room, someone goes through my personal belongings. They take everything sharp, including my blush, which has a mirror in the case, and then they take my shoelaces from my running shoes. I don't really get that, but whatever, I just go along with it all. The staff takes the three of us to a floor in the hospital, and we enter through some large double doors. It's very late now. We walk into an area with about 6 rooms in a horseshoe shape. There is someone sitting at the desk on my left as I walk in. The carpet is green, kind of like a golf course color. My parents see me in and help me get settled into what I'm told is my room, and then they have to say goodbye. They seem sad, but really, it's okay. I know this is where I'm supposed to be. It's all part of a great big plan, and it's all for me. I know I'm supposed to go to bed, but I just can't sleep. There's too much excitement to sleep. Sleep's kind of a waste of time anyway. I get up and walk out of my room into the main area. It's quiet and dark, and I'm told to go back to my room to sleep. I get into bed, but don't really sleep at all. In what seems to be the very early morning, a vampire comes into my room while I'm still in bed and draws my blood. Then a psychiatrist comes to my room and starts asking a lot of questions. He tells me the nurse will be giving me some pills. She hands them to me. I take them. I always do what the doctors tell me to. Now it's daytime, and I can actually see what's going on. There are other people with rooms of their own in the same corridor. I wander over to the large doors where I came through last night. There are 2 narrow windows above the door handles. As I peer out, I can see other rooms along a very long hall, and more people. I'm really not all that interested. For now, I'm just waiting for the next cue as to where this adventure will be taking me. I know there is something planned for me, something good. I'm introduced to a woman sitting in a rocking chair. She looks familiar. She has on a blue sweatshirt with the word physical scrawled across the front. Oh, I love that song by Olivia Newton-John. Well, her hair is blonde, and it looks like it really could be Yes, I think it's actually Olivia Newton-John. When we're introduced, she says her name is Jenny. Okay, so she's using a different name. It doesn't really matter. She seems to take a liking to me. She's older than me and takes me under her wing. Very early in our conversation, she tells me we're making a movie. A movie? Wow, this is great. It makes total sense that someone would want to make a movie with me in it. And now this explains why I'm in this place. How fun is this? I soon get nervous about the cameras being on at all times, and I ask her what to do when I'm in the shower. She tells me not to worry and to just close my eyes and they will stop the filming. Whew, what a relief. I like walking around this place knowing that we are filming with all those hidden cameras, and I have a lot of fun with it. It feels great to be a star. It's now my second night here and it's late again. I find it still hard to sleep. Just like last night, I wander out into the horseshoe-shaped area and start talking to the kid sitting at the tall desk by the door. He's doing his homework and tells me he's in college. After a little while, he also tells me I need to go back and try to go to sleep. I say okay. As I turn around to walk to my room, I see a vision of two people in one of the rooms behind their closed doors. Something in me knows that what I'm seeing is not real. Weird. I just keep walking and wander back into my room. In no time, I'm up again and go back out to talk to the kid doing his homework. Nice guy, but apparently has a job to do, and he tells me very gently that I really need to try to sleep. I try, but it's not working. They tell me they will give me something to help. At last, I'm in la-la land for a few hours. After taking those pills for a couple of days, things start getting fuzzy, and I start slowing down. I begin to realize that I'm not feeling normal. Also, I notice that without a code, those big double doors don't open and close. Doesn't really faze me because we're here to make a movie, and that's what's really important. My mom visits me every day and brings me a McDonald's vanilla milkshake and fries each visit. I love those vanilla milkshakes. I love my mom visiting and the special attention I get. However, one day she makes me so mad that I tell her I hate her, and she leaves in tears. After she's gone, I can't remember why I got so angry. She's the best. I'm not mad anymore. I continue to wear my brand new running shoes that I wore in here. They're kind of a pinkish red color. I love these shoes. I went out for the track team just before coming in here, and I knew I would need them. Of course, they took the shoelaces out for some crazy reason, but I still walk and run around in here all the time. Why not? I have no desire to wear the slippers like some of the others. I'm having a great time in here. Jenny uses the payphone in the unit and orders us a pizza. Cool. It's just about then that I realize there are rules in this place. Ordering a pizza to be delivered to what they call a closed unit is not okay. We laugh when we found out we broke the rules, and the nurses let us keep it anyway. Jenny and I talk and talk until one day she up and snaps at me and suddenly gets very mean. I cry and cannot understand because she said she liked me so much. A nurse comforts me and explains that she is sick too, and I should not take it personally. The nurse said she's sick too. It's been about 4 days since I arrived here, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm here for a reason other than the movie. I'm getting really confused, and the doctor does not seem to think there really is a movie being made. I don't want to believe him. He can't be right, can he? What's going on? There is a boy who waves to me through the narrow windows of the very large double doors. I find out his name is Billy, and he seems close to my age. I am told that he and I are the only young ones here, and he has no one else to relate to. He looks kind of sad and lonely. He comes by often, but he's on the other side, so we cannot talk. Somehow we seem to bond without speaking. 2 days later, I'm on the same side of the doors as Billy. I still have a private room, and I still think we're making a movie. Jenny is left behind the double doors. So, a few comments that I want to make about this reading. Well, no, I was not going to be in the Olympics. And Although swimming had been a big part of my life, I was not swimming competitively in high school. I had a psychotic manic episode with delusions of grandeur. I very easily bought into another person's delusions and went right along with them on their journey. How I so clearly smell chlorine, I don't know, although I'm told that our senses are heightened in a manic episode. But some things I will never be able to make sense of. It was just the illness. Each time I read this, I'm reminded of how many different things were going on, and it brings up a lot of different feelings. And one of the things in particular that I wanted to mention has to do with family. I said how much I love my mom, yet I told her I hated her. And for me, this was the illness talking. It was not me. And it's important to know that the source of the irritability is not always reality-based. And thank goodness the doctor explained this to my mom, and she understood that I didn't mean it, but I knew it was very upsetting and confusing, especially when she had done nothing wrong and all she did was love me. And things like this were tough for me to swallow later. But the end of the reading is really just the beginning. The story certainly doesn't end here. But just as in my book, I'm going to be sharing some more experiences and how I was able to get well, while knowing that it has not been a linear process and that my recovery and request towards wellness definitely is a journey and not a destination. So years after my diagnosis, doing a lot of research, going to support groups, meeting many people with bipolar disorder, going to some mental health conferences. Was trying to learn how to figure out ways to help people, was working on my book, and in doing all of this, although I wouldn't have realized it before, I found that my story differs a bit from many of the people that I have met. And so the things that set me apart, I'm kind of dividing them into two categories. And one is the category of things that I had no control of, and then the other one are the things that I had control of. So prior to onset, I had a pretty normal life. And then what happened was I had this acute manic episode. And I was very fortunate in that I was diagnosed early, within about 10 days of manic behavior. Of course, it was gradual, and then it was full-blown. I was also accurately diagnosed very quickly, as in the reading I said, within 10 minutes. I was very fortunate to have family support, and I realized, too, that no one said that I didn't have a chance and that I wouldn't be okay. Yes, it'd be harder, and I'd be living with it for a long time, but not that my life was going to be over because of this. But then there are things that were in my control, and I had a lot of work to do to get better, but I think that there were three main factors that were in my control that have probably played the most significant role in my wellness, and what also seems to set me apart a bit from a lot of people that I've met. The first is acceptance of the illness, then there's adherence to treatment, and there's understanding. You would think that understanding would come first, but I don't think I was able to fully understand until I did a lot of my own research, which came several years into the illness after I had more bouts with the mania and more hospitalizations. So with the acceptance, I really think that it came quickly for me, is that I had remembered many of the things I had done, and I knew they weren't normal for me. I did not understand how or why I thought I was going to be in the Olympics, and I also don't know why that was my reality. And I just believed everything that my brain was telling me. I mean, that's the best way for me to say it. And I also knew that I needed to move on, and I wanted to be normal. And normal for me was how I was before my manic episode. Not normal compared to other people, although that certainly happened too over time. But my psychiatrist outside the hospital really encouraged my parents not to treat me too differently or with kid gloves. He felt that if they did, I might end up stuck in the illness. So my attitude was, I've got this thing, so let's deal with it and try to get back to how I was prior to it. Certainly, I'm not trying to make it sound easy, because it wasn't. But I feel that my parents trusted the doctor. Fortunately, his advice was sound, and I moved forward with plans that we had had with graduating from high school and going off to college. But again, we were fortunate to have a doctor who thought that that was really important. So next came adherence. And the word they used to use for this was compliance. So I guess adherence is a little bit of a softer, nicer word. But the adherence came from the acceptance. And I felt that I needed to follow the doctor's orders because it really made sense to me. And I'm not saying that this was a walk in the park, because especially with the medication, it wasn't. I had side effects. I had to get lithium blood levels drawn frequently in the beginning, especially. All these things that made me feel different. So that was difficult. But I think that moving on and, like I said, graduating, going to college was more on my mind, and I just had to press on. But I have to say that adhering was key, and if I had resisted it, it may have taken me a lot longer to move forward. And then understanding. Understanding came with time. After the illness found me several more times while I was doing what the doctors, even when I did what the doctors were telling me to do, I desired to know all I could about this thing that had become part of my life. We did not have the internet back then, and I recall going to the University of Pittsburgh Medical School library, and I researched hours upon hours, photocopying articles after articles so that I could understand all that I possibly could about the illness. And back then, not as much was known. But with this understanding and joining a support group, going to seminars and conferences, and talking to people who understood, this all really helped me to move forward. So after about 6 years, I had 4 hospitalizations due to mania. I had 10 years of stability. I may have had little ups and downs, but I didn't have any full-blown episodes. And I feel that, I feel very fortunate that was the case. But next came the depression. And I had some serious depression after listening to a new psychiatrist. And I had gone off a medication abruptly. And sorry, I have to go back. I apologize. I had taken out a slide that I've added back in. So let me just back up and say that there are times when we do everything right and we trust the doctor, and sometimes things don't work. And this is just the true reality of how things are. And so it was hard for me to learn that that's sometimes the case. And doctors make mistakes, but I learned that you have to trust your instincts and that you really have to be your own advocate and don't be afraid to question things and get second opinions. So what had happened to me in this kind of situation was that I ended up having some serious depression, and I had listened to a doctor that I trusted, and he had me go off a medication abruptly that I'd been on for years. And even though my gut feeling said it wasn't right, he insisted, so I went along with it. And in the end, I ended up on short-term disability, and then this unfortunately opened me up to more depressions. The majority of my depressions now in the last probably 10 years have become seasonal, and they have been more debilitating. I look at them as more debilitating than what the manias were, although they were always very hard to come back from. But it can be very difficult at times. It affects my ability to concentrate and focus. It's difficult to get out of bed. Self-esteem is affected. I don't like the things that I normally find pleasure in. Making decisions are difficult. And life changes, good or bad, affects it. And stress can really affect it. And these are all parts of depression. And even though I do struggle with it, I do the best I can with it, and I'm very hopeful that someday that'll get better. So I don't want to paint a picture of sickness, because even though there has been quite a bit of that, I've been well, much more than I've been sick. And I've been able to really have a very good life and be able to work full time. I'm very fortunate to have plenty of friends. I got married recently, which was a very positive change, but was difficult as well. And I love to travel, and I was able to get my book published. So many more things have gone on that are well than not, and I feel very fortunate for that. So I want to mention some of the things that I do to take care of myself and to prevent episodes. So I'm going to list them all out here. There's quite a few, but going to a doctor or therapist or both, and having a good partnership with them, taking my medication appropriately. Structure and routine are huge for people who have bipolar disorder, and having good sleep hygiene and our sleep patterns, going to bed at the same time, getting up at the same time, very, very important. And then, of course, exercising, nutrition and eating habits, one that I struggle with, supplements and light therapy for people who have seasonal affective disorder. That does help many people. And then with alcohol, being very careful, either excluding it altogether or minimizing it. We have so much going on with our brains that it doesn't help to add something else to it. Having a strong support system is really important. And like I said before, with the research, self-education has been really important for me. And my spirituality, mindfulness, meditation, that's just very new for me that I'm trying. So hopefully that will be a big help. And also working on recognizing the warning signs and taking the appropriate action. So if I'm not getting enough sleep for a while, knowing that I have to figure out why that is and call my doctor or maybe adjust medication, things like that. But when I look at this list, it is a lot, and I can't do it all the time, but I know that the more I can do, the better off I am. And I also know that even if I'm doing everything possible that I can, I still might not be able to be what I call my normal. But I do the best that I can. And I've also learned that most of these things, or many of them, are important for many people. But with a brain illness, our brains are more sensitive, and these things are even more important to ensure our best health. some lessons I've learned that I continue to work on, and this mainly has to do with the depression because that's what I've really struggled with more in the last 15 years. Um, I realize that there's a lack of understanding with bipolar. People talk a lot more about depression, but sometimes I think it might be even harder to comprehend that part of it because you look okay, so why can't you do certain things? Why can't you get up? You look fine, and I think it's an invisible illness. But to some of the things that I need to treat myself with compassion, the same compassion that I have when I try to help others, because I found that I'm guilty of giving some great advice to others, but then when it comes to me, I don't do the same. Something I call shoulding myself is really not healthy, and I often am saying that I should do this or do that, but it's only defeating. I need to take the help that people offer and don't think that I have to do this all on my own. Doing nice things for myself, especially when I'm not feeling well. Remembering just how powerful depression is, and that a lot of time I'm a little bit better than I think I am. Remembering that this is going to pass, and this is not the real me, and that it's episodic. I have learned, and I have always said, just never give up. And don't forget that it's an illness, and that's there's some things we can't fix on our own. That's why it is an illness. But I try to achieve balance. I acknowledge that I have limits. This is no different from someone without bipolar. We all have limits. And then the hardest one for me to do is not to be so hard on myself. And I think that's very common for people who have bipolar disorder. So I want to move on and say just a couple of things about language and stigma. Language is very powerful. Years ago, I would probably say that I was bipolar. But solely identifying with one's illness doesn't really make any sense. And I often say, do we ever hear someone say I'm cancer or I'm a broken arm? So why do we say I'm bipolar or I'm mentally ill? It just doesn't seem to make sense. For me, there's something that really makes me cringe and that I call old language. And that's when I hear someone say the mentally ill or mentally ill people. And when I hear it, it takes me back to days way before I even knew what this illness was. And I think of a mental institution, maybe something I saw in a movie or read about, and with people in very compromised positions. And it's an awful vision, and it's very scary. And if we have to call it a mental illness, I mean, maybe we could call it brain illness. That might be better. But why can't people say a person who has a mental illness? After all, we are people first. I think we have to change the mindset and speak up, even when it's not easy to point this out. It's not to criticize people, but because the old language is what we know, I mean, that's all we know. But we need to educate and help people to understand that old language is damaging and only moves the stigma forward. So I feel very, very strongly about that. And I know that some people would not agree with me, but I have watched over my entire adult life, and I really don't see that stigma for bipolar has changed that much since 30 years ago. And this just isn't acceptable. I mean, I feel that awareness is increasing, and on a positive note, in the past few years, people are talking more about it. But I don't think the general public really understands. And that's one of the reasons I'm trying to help to educate, so we can eliminate or at least minimize the stigma. The bottom line is we need more education, and we have a long way to go. So I wanted to give just one little brief example of something that happened recently to me in a doctor's office. And it was a specialist appointment that I um, had to go to that had to deal with my medication for my bipolar. So he knew that I had bipolar when I came in. And I've wondered this before, but I was with other doctors that I've gone to, but I was really wondering what his initial thoughts were coming into the office. And I got the nerve to ask him after we had talked for some time, and I told him it was okay if he didn't answer, but he said, I have to say to you that you're not what I expected. And then he told me, because I asked him why, obviously, but he told me that there were other patients that he had had and that they had been off their medication. So it was a different picture. But I appreciated his honesty, but it made me sad to think that that was the picture for him. And so many other people, that's not what they look like. And so I feel that doctors need to be educated. So a couple of other things that I just wanted to mention is just as a reminder, there's no magic formula, but without acceptance, it's really difficult to move forward. And without adherence to some sort of treatment plan, it's difficult to go anywhere. Without understanding, it's more difficult for people to accept and adhere. And these are all the things that are in our control. So acceptance, adherence, and understanding were the things that fueled me to soldier on. The last thing I wanted to mention was just a couple of the hopes and dreams that I have for this illness, and I just thought it'd be good to list because this is what I feel that we should be advocating for to make our lives better. And it all really starts with funding, and we need more funding for research, for prevention, not just treatment. And we need better access to treatment, more affordable treatment, more holistic approaches to treatment, and that means better communication with the other doctors and people who are involved in our care. We need an increased range of treatment covered by insurance for non-traditional ancillary treatments that would help improve our wellness, such as massage therapy, mindfulness meditation classes, gym memberships, things like that. Maybe nutrition coaches, but these are just a few to name. Wouldn't that help our wellness? And I think that medical schools need to have better training. I'm really hoping that with more education, we can help others to gain better understanding, and that will decrease stigma, that we can pay more attention to family history, because a lot of times people are diagnosed without through a primary care physician, and their family history isn't even checked, and then they end up finding out they have bipolar after going on an antidepressant, which can flip them into a mania. We need to know more what it looks like so it can be diagnosed more accurately and earlier. And earlier diagnosis will equal earlier treatment. And then early treatment will be less time to suffer, and this can help to avoid broken relationships, lost jobs. And I've not talked about suicide here, and for whatever reason it has not been a part of my illness or the depressions, but I've heard more and more and more about more suicide attempts and fatalities, and especially with our younger population. And we have to find out a way to prevent this. It just can't continue, and we really have to help people not only, to keep them alive, but people to achieve wellness. I think that should be our goal, that we can achieve wellness and live the lives that we all want to live. So that is my message for today, and I thank you again thank you for being on the line, and thank you for International Bipolar Foundation, and hopefully people can be generous to support them so they can continue to do their good work.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. We do have a few questions. The first question, what role does spirituality play in your recovery?
Well, I think it's my for me, my spirituality is through my Christianity, and it's really been huge because it's a big source of my, well, it's a foundation for me, but it's also a source of hope, and I cling to that on a regular basis.
The next question, what classroom modifications may have helped you in school?
I think that when I was, I don't know if they mean high school or college, but I think that for many people, like me, have a component of ADD, and I I think that maybe having different times or more time to take tests. Um, I'm not sure because I didn't think about that for me, and maybe back then it just wasn't as common because I know today a lot of people do get modifications. So, but yeah, for me that wasn't. I guess that wasn't even an option.
Lithium, did going on lithium make you this way, present?
Oh, you know what, I, I, I lost you for a minute. Can you repeat that?
Sure. Lithium have anything to do with this? Or did it take
Okay,
away?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's wrong with the audio, but because everything's, I'm not hearing
You're
it.
not hearing?
I could just hear about the lithium. Did it take away from something?
Are, okay, let me go on to the next question. Maybe that.
I can hear it now. I can hear you now, but I couldn't hear you at all.
Okay. So let me try that one again. So
Okay.
the question is, you sound extremely present currently. Did lithium take that away from you at any point, or did that help you be very in the moment and present?
Um, I'm thinking in the end it probably helped me. I have been on it, except for the two times I was taken off it. I've been on it for the whole time. I'm on other medications as well, but the lithium has been there the majority of the time, and I think I think it took a little getting used to, but after time, I think that it was fine. I think that sometimes people don't give it a chance, but no, I think that it's probably no. I'm sure that it's helped me.
Sorry for that delay. Okay, great. Thank you very much for that answer. The next question, is therapy helpful for you?
Therapy is something again that in the beginning it was all psychiatrists who did all the therapy. It was a lot different. Um, Therapy has helped me in the past. I am someone who's very goal oriented, so that kind of therapy works well for me. I know that there's other times when people more process things, and that has not been as helpful to me. But so when I've gone to therapy for specific goals, it has been very helpful.
Great, thank you. Do you have any personal experience with support groups, whether they be online or in person? And if so, do you have particular groups that you would suggest?
Yes, definitely. The DBSA, which is the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance, and I have been a part of that for about probably 10 years. They are all over the country, so they're a national organization. They actually have online support groups as well. So it's dbsaalliance.org. But I strongly suggest, and it's been a huge, huge help to me.
Such as weight gain.
Okay, that I couldn't hear part of that except for the weight gain.
Okay, do you experience any side effects such as weight gain?
Yes, I think that with lithium initially, um, but once it got stabilized, I just think I think it adds to, it's a struggle. I'm always trying, always working on my on weight, but it hasn't been something that's has caused me to gain 20, 30 pounds. Nothing like that. The lithium, I would say, for me, was 5, 10 pounds, but then really hard to lose the weight. But but for lithium, I don't think that's a huge issue. That's my opinion.
52 years old today. How can I be of service to him in a positive way? I do call and text him on a weekly basis, and he responds when he's doing okay or tells me, I can't talk now, not feeling good. Any suggestions?
Okay, I only caught that. I'm not quite sure what's wrong with the audio, but I heard the 52 years old
Okay,
and trying to communicate with the person via text. Can you say it again?
sure. This is a parent, and she's saying she doesn't, or he or she does not live close to her adult son. How can she help him in a positive way? She does call and text him on a weekly basis, and at times he responds when he's doing okay, or he tells me that he can't talk because he's not feeling good. How can she help him in a positive way when he's not feeling good?
Okay. That's such a hard one because I think of my own self, how the reality is a lot of times when you're not feeling well, you don't you don't want to, communicate, and that is a sign that things aren't going as well. It sounds to me like this person is being very supportive, and I always think that the most important thing is being there for someone. I think that the even if he doesn't respond, the the texting is really important, just to keep showing that you're there. I know that it's got to be hard being far away, um, but it's also someone who's a little bit older. It's not like they're a younger child, so that's harder too. I wonder if the person has other resources, is getting the help that they need, or something like that. When the other person asked about a support group, if they know of places to go that might be helpful. So I don't know if there's something where they live that they could, you know, find a support group that might be helpful. Sorry, that's not the best answer.
Oh, that was great. Thank you very much. Um, the next question: Do you have a blog?
I don't, but that's something that I want to do. I'd like to do that on my website. So I want to do that. I guest blogged on one of my colleagues, Julie Fast. I've done some guest blogging on there. So that's something I want to do, hopefully soon.
Great, thank you. Sorry, we do have a little delay here. Next question. Do you have any other diagnosis beside bipolar disorder?
Well, I consider the seasonal affective disorder its own diagnosis, but really, I guess it's very related. Anxiety comes along with it, and that I know I have such trouble with concentrating that I know that I have a form of ADD, but I don't have those actual diagnoses. But they're all part of it, so I guess it's the spectrum.
Excellent, thank you very much. The next question, what is an example of holistic treatment, and can you prevent the onset of illness? Okay.
Oh, when I mentioned that, was talking about treating the whole body and just not just our brain. It seems like so often that people are that we don't connect, and the doctors don't connect, and especially for women, there's a lot of hormonal things going on, and the psychiatrist may not know as much about that area. And so I really is just one of the things I was mentioning was my hope was that we could have more of an approach where people would communicate and kind of like a all hands on deck, because I think that's what we really need. I think we can't just treat one part of ourselves.
Great, thank you. The next question, I'm having trouble finding and maintaining employment. Did you seek services from your state or other sources to obtain employment?
No, I have been fortunate that I have not needed to. Um, yeah, I'm sorry that I can't really help with that. Although I do know that a lot of the local, may not be state, but a lot of the local behavioral health care organizations, local government, that they often can help with getting jobs. That's one suggestion.
Great, thank you. Maybe this will lead, or this is kind of a lead in from that. What process did you go through to have your memoir published?
Oh, well, I ended up self-publishing. I had started years ago and kind of put it on the shelf after I'd had all my manias, and then I started having the depressions, and I felt I could write it to the full gamut of the illness. So I started to write and found an editor and worked with her for some time, and then decided to just research a whole bunch of self-publishing companies, and that's really how I went about it. It was a lot of work, I'll say that. Definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. But probably more than I ever envisioned from the beginning. But I encourage people to do it. I think that everyone has a story in them, so I think it's a great experience.
Wonderful, thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, it's about time to wrap it up. So I want to say thank you very much for sharing your story, your insights and information. It's been wonderful to hear from you, Elizabeth. And I want to remind everyone that this webinar has been recorded and it will be archived on our website later today. So if you weren't able to attend, or a friend, or if you want to go back to review, it will be there. And if you have any additional questions that you weren't able to ask, or you can email me at dbrown@ibpf.org, and I'd be happy to forward them to Lizabeth. So thank you again, and have a great day, everyone.